Now let's consider adding in a power supply to our two resistance boxes that had been previously connected. So we introduce our battery one more time. And let's say that we want to get the battery into the picture with our two resistance boxes. Well, we can do that with, in this case, the use of gator clips. So we place those on the end of our connecting wires, clip onto the battery itself, and by so doing we are supplying a current, that is a power, from a current that is now moving about the circuit. And so by so doing, we can now ask the question, what voltage is, let's say, this battery now supplying to these resistance boxes themselves? So we can do that by once again introducing the meter. Now what we're going to want to do is we're going to need to connect two more wires to the meter itself. And let us suppose that we're curious about, let's say, the voltage coming from the battery that is being supplied to the left resistor. So when it comes to voltage, you want to connect from outside the series circuit into the circuit, into the system. And by so doing, by plugging into these two, you're finding out the voltage that's being supplied for just this resistor. So let's take a look at that. So in this particular case, we dial down to the appropriate setting. And so the 2-volt one is the appropriate one. So we see that from the battery itself, which most batteries, they come from the factory, are in the neighborhood of 1.5 volts. We see that there's 0.720 volts from the battery that's contributing to pushing current through this resistor. Now notice the minus sign. So this is something that you want to be mindful of. If we were to reverse these connections here, then what you're doing is you're measuring the flow of charge in the opposite direction, but you should still get the same number here, minus or plus. So let's say that we've got now that number for the left, and what we want to do is take a look at the voltage being supplied to the right resistor. In this case, we see we have a value of 0.433. And so now what we could see is, well, we've got a voltage here, we have a voltage here. How might that compare to the overall voltage from the battery itself? And so what you'll see here, which perhaps makes sense to you, the addition of the two voltages should be that which is coming from the battery itself. So part of the voltage is pushing electrons through this resistor, and another part of the voltage is pushing through this one. The question is, we have less voltage here, which corresponds to a smaller resistance, which you have here. Larger voltage, if you recall here, is required to push the electrons through a larger resistance. Okay, so that's how you check voltage from outside the circuit.